Philip to Evelyn, V-mail dated March 15, 1944. Dearest Evie, just received your typewritten V-mail of March 3rd, so I'm replying in kind. Anytime you feel like writing V-mail that way, sweet, I won't complain, 'cause you certainly can squeeze plenty of type into this form. I'm missing your letters of the 1st and 2nd and hoping they show up tomorrow. You say you gave the new coat to the tailor for cleaning and lengthening of the sleeves. Is that the beige top coat you were thinking of buying, or the new fur coat? It has me puzzled. If it's the former, then why the cleaner? If the latter, why the tailor and not the furrier? I give up. No, I don't. I just got an idea. It must be the beige top coat. Why the cleaner? Why, because the light material showed the marks of being handled in the shop. Now can I move up to the head of the class, teacher? The minute I saw your V-mail so neatly and cleanly typed, I thought, aha, at last the typewriter is fixed. From the look of the type, I would say that you have a new ribbon also. Although the print is tiny, it is very legible. I guess one of the 2 missing letters will straighten me out on both points. When I read that you had procured a whole box of Milky Ways from Ben and were sending it off tomorrow, I almost yelled for joy. When I receive that particular package, I'll be the envy of the whole darn army. That, my sweet, is a prize of the first water. You have a mistaken idea, Ev, if you think that I am a candy hog. I can understand why you have that impression, but you are overlooking the true reasons behind my constant pleas for candy. First, you must understand that it is well nigh impossible to get any more sweets here in England than our regular weekly ration, which is usually 1 chocolate bar of some kind and a couple of bars of peppermints or some other hard candy. Secondly, you must bear in mind that it is one of the very few things that we have no way of getting in even moderate quantity. Finally, you must take into consideration the fact that it takes almost 2 months for a package to arrive from the States. Now do you begin to understand my unseemly clamoring after candy and nothing else? Lest I forget, request, please send the package of candy. Glad to hear that spring, beautiful spring, has finally come to good old Philly. How about meeting me on the bench in front of the house at 5 p.m. sharp? I'll be sitting on the end nearest the porch. Look for me there, will you, Chippy? I'm going to take it for granted it's a date. This morning, having the most of my work cleaned up, I found time to write a real longie to Brother Jack. Consequently, I feel much better this evening. Tomorrow I'll try to get one off to Jack N. and perhaps Dottie if I can manage it. Glad to hear that the pumpkin is getting steadier on her pins. The picture of you holding her by the hand and walking in the spring sun up sycamore-lined 8th Street is a very pretty one. God grant I'll be able to join you before the sunshine gives way to the gray skies and cold winds of winter. Just noticed you asked a question. You want to know if I learned anything from the others about that certain subject. What an idea! You should be the best judge of whether or not I needed to learn anything. I hope my answer of a flat no doesn't disappoint you, Chippy. Now I'll ask you one. Do you know of any point of said subject that I am ignorant of? Is there perhaps an indefinite lack that you have felt at some time? If so, I'll make every effort to learn it from the others. Time to tender all my love to the Chippy, who, when she learned to love, learned everything. Always your Phil. Evelyn to Philip, March 16, 1944. Dearest mine, I did not write yesterday, and you will learn why shortly. As I told you in Tuesday's letter, I bought Adele shoes yesterday. I got off to a good start Wednesday morning and was expecting Sari to accompany me, but she couldn't. I had to call 12 shoe stores before I hit one that had her size in stock, and then I ran like hell. It was Goldstein's, 1004 South Street. I went alone and damn near died of exhaustion. My insides still ache. I thought sure I had ruptured myself, even though I made Adele do more walking than she ever did. She practically walked from here to 5th Street, with me picking her up at intervals. The ride on the 47 is tiring, and since we went up and back with less than a half hour's break, it was plain murder. Yesterday and today, the weather has been hot, high humidity that has made everyone sweat. She cried half the way back and twisted and turned, and the trolley was packed to the doors, affording little air. I was getting ill myself. You know what riding on trolleys does to me. Well, this was no exception, hence my fear of traveling alone with Adele. Baby, I never wished so hard for you to be present. I must have cursed the U.S. Army black and blue. She was wearing a 4.5 double E, and now she's wearing a 5.5 D. She had been misfitted the last time, and her feet were uncomfortable in the short, too wide shoes. The fellow there said that if anyone fitted his kid that way, he'd put them in prison. He said double E was for kids that weigh about 50 pounds and can't stand on their feet. The shoes are good-looking white buckskin and cost $3.50. I even called the Walk Easy shop on Chestnut Street that charges $6 a pair and couldn't get a thing. If I have any trouble whatever with these shoes, I shall take her to a foot doctor. By the way, Dot's aunt worked at Goldstein's and referred me to the fellow who knew the most about fitting children's shoes. Otherwise, I would have gone straight to a doctor. No wonder the poor kid wasn't walking properly and kept falling. These shoes have done wonders already. This fellow told me not to worry about width in a baby's shoe, but length. Always buy them long was his advice. He said he'd rather let me walk out without shoes rather than sell a misfit and lose a customer. I fed and bathed Adele, put her to bed, fell across our bed, and slept for a full 2 hours. When I awoke, my insides and stomach were still aching, and it was after 9. I had to wash Adele's sleeper, for I hadn't a single change. Then I went right back to bed. Adele only woke once, otherwise I rested most of the night. I dread the next shoe buying spree already. Do you blame me? I'm really getting ahead of myself, for I neglected to mention that Ethel and Al stopped over late Tuesday night. They brought the candy we had ordered from Ray, and I shall be mailing off another package most any day when I can catch my breath. Ethel's baby had page 2 dropped, and Ethel looked smaller than ever. Her wedding band is plain gold with 6 chips bunched together across the top like mine, only the chips are a bit larger than mine. It's plain and pretty. We talked till almost 12. I returned the things Ethel gave me and gave her a dozen nipples that I had left from Adele. This is the 3rd mailless day again, and I can't help wondering at the lack of mail. Do you know, baby, that Ed's mail always is 5 days old? My mother had a letter from him today dated March 11th. He said he was hoping to meet you again and asked for 2 large requests, a wristwatch and a hunting knife like yours. Whatever happened to your letters of March 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and after the 7th? Gosh, but the lack of mail kills me. Come on, something. Tonight, Mom gave each Goldie and I $5 for a birthday gift. I felt terrible about accepting it, but I guess she felt good about the new raise. I hope to get a new dress by adding to it, if I can get something nice. And something else that made me feel pretty good. My mom has a gold baby ring for Adele and a gold bracelet with a little diamond chip in it. I never thought of mentioning the want of these 2 items to my mom, so there now. She'll get them for me first opportunity, and Adele will have some jewelry after all. Goldie brought her gold baby ring home from Poughkeepsie, and I tried it on Adele. It fit her third finger perfectly, and she admired it no end. She couldn't pull it off either. My mother also had a lovely gold Jewish star, but I think Ruth wants that. She has a tiny locket, heart-shaped, that I wore, but I bit it in several places, and she doesn't have a chain for it. Isn't it funny that I never thought of asking her, yet I knew she had something in baby jewelry. I had written to Gloria to inquire of her brother-in-law, the jeweler, who has his own company, and he advised her to advise me not to buy anything in the jewelry line. Even Uncle Nish said so. Gloria received your request, but wrote that she thinks the post office will no longer accept shipments of chocolate for overseas due to the fact that they melt or spoil before arrival. I haven't heard of anything to that effect and asked Lou to inquire for me. Incidentally, the postage rates on airmail to a soldier overseas will remain 6 cents, and it will be 3 cents for local as well as out-of-town mail. That won't run my postage bill any higher as I had thought it would previously. I don't know what Gloria plans to do. No doubt she'll send it if it is permissible. How has the chocolate I've sent reached you? Harry and Goldie had to pay an income tax of $150, excluding the heavy tax being deducted from Harry's pay. Their combined incomes totaled nearly $4,000 last year, and they claim they haven't much to show for it. The way they spent money, it's no wonder. If it is true, Harry has been having trouble with an ankle and went to the doctor this evening. Ethel asked us to come over for a cake cutting of her page 3 anniversary cake, but I couldn't get anyone to stay with Adele. Mom and Goldie went a short while ago. Today is Ray's birthday, too. Ethel and Mickey bought her a gorgeous pin and earrings, so I hear. Ethel told us Tuesday night that Bob Lieberman is in 4F on account of his hernia. Lena never said a thing. You know Bob. Phil, when I heard of the differences between Ireland and England and the heavy bombing of London recently, I felt funny and wished very much that you hadn't been in London. I know you had a 2-day pass coming up and that you said you weren't planning on going anywhere this trip. But if you borrowed, you might have been there at the time. Need I tell you of my feelings? I'm even leery about dragging Adele up to Claire Pruitt, but if it's nice next week, I'll put her in the walker and wheel her up. I'm more anxious than ever to get the carriage, but my dad tells me I'll just have to be patient. They are expecting metal ones any day now. Almost all baby things will be made of metal and will be released any day now. Regular carriages made entirely of metal have already been released. Baby mine, it's getting late and I'm terribly anxious to hit the sack, as you would say. I'm not going, though, not until I've told you just once more that I love you, Phil, more with the passing of each second and minute and hour. A loving kiss from your Ev. Philip to Evelyn, March 16, 1944. Darling Chippy, since the longie of yesterday, very little has happened to warrant my writing, but since it is my custom to do so whenever possible, whether there is anything to write about or not, I'll cudgel my brain for words enough to fill this page. This morning I finished up the more important work for the month when I turned in the officers' pay vouchers to the finance office. After tending a few minor matters, I found some time on my hands, so I decided to write that long overdue letter to Jack N. I filled 3 of these sheets with closely written script, so I don't think he has any room for complaint as to the length of the letter. This took till lunchtime. After lunch I had some more free time, which was spent composing the enclosed birthday greeting. Most of the afternoon was whiled away in this pursuit. Do I hear you muttering that I wasted my time? Maybe I did, but since I am unable to offer a more tangible gift under the circumstances, I felt impelled to tender what little inspiration I could on the approaching occasion of your 22nd birthday. Please be lenient with your criticism of my little effort suite, and allow for the fact that I imposed a severe restriction on my range of expression when I determined the first letter of each line beforehand. If the whole thing seems off balance, it is for the same reason. If the whole thing doesn't make sense, at least remember that my intentions were good and that I was endeavoring to the best of my limited ability to wish you a very happy birthday. There was no mail for me today, and I'm beginning to count the mailless days again in anticipation of the next batch. Things are pretty dull around here this evening, and I'm beginning to feel lazy and sleepy, so you'll excuse me, I know, if I kiss you goodnight at this point and turn in. Kiss my pumpkin for me. My love to all. Yours ever lovingly, Phil.